Hey guys, and welcome to another video. My name's Mark, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a property investor. I've got about £3.5 million worth of property, and today I want to talk to you about why I believe that 2023, with all the stuff that's currently going on in the economy, may well be the best year for investing in property and the year where you can make large amounts of money very, very quickly. Now, I want you to stick with me because I've got quite a lot of data to go through. I've got some numbers. I want to make sure that I give you as much detail around my thought process so that you can understand what I'm thinking. Ultimately, when there's this much uncertainty, nobody knows what the future holds. Please don't take this as any sort of crystal ball. I really don't know. But what I do know is that there are some things that we can control. And when we have controllables, we can make money. So guys, before we get into the video, if you haven't already subscribed, why not consider subscribing? We've got our subscriber dividend portfolio, £4,500 in that at the moment. And every single month, I'm going to pay the dividends out to you after I add an extra £2,000 into that, which means that we'll be giving away some significant dividends towards the end of this year, 2023. And if I could possibly ask you guys to give this video a big like, it really helps me out the algorithm, and I want to make sure that I give as much transparency as I possibly can, and by doing that, it really does let YouTube know that this sort of content is really useful. What I want to do first of all is talk about the fact that there is so much uncertainty at the moment. Interest rates up, cost of living crisis well and truly underway. There are things that are affecting people and their everyday lives. But what I see is when there is uncertainty, there is opportunity. And this is because people are emotional beings. Now, I know it sounds a bit horrible to say that when you get emotional, you quite often make bad decisions. And I certainly understand that. Even if you look at your own life, and if I look at my life, when I'm in an emotional state for whatever reason, any decision I make may well not be the best decision that I would make when I'm not in that sort of state. And when we have something that's perpetuating this sort of emotional state, such as interest rate rising, cost of living crisis, people unable to afford what they were able to afford before, then they are going to be in an emotional state. And property gives us this exceptional opportunity because it is what's known as a negotiable asset. So what do I mean by that? Well, when you're purchasing a property, there is a seller and a buyer, and you are essentially bidding and negotiating with that seller directly on the price that you pay for the property. So let's say, for example, a property was worth 100,000. You might actually be able to buy that for 80,000 or 85,000. And if you were to do that, you've built in 20k of essentially profit on the day that you've bought it. So property gives us this ability to be able to negotiate. Now you might ask, why would somebody sell something that's worth 100,000 for 80? And there might be many, many reasons. The first one might be that there just isn't the number of buyers that there was before. So they've been trying to sell the property, maybe they're moving away. I remember when I bought one of my houses in Sheffield, that people were moving to France. And actually, they were just very pleased that I held on for as long as I did. I ended up paying 95,000 for a property that was worth 120 by the time we completed on it. But they were very, very pleased that I held on throughout the year it took them to negotiate and buy their property over in France. So I was able to get a great deal by solving their problem and being that buyer that would complete on the date that they wanted to. So I just think that when there's this much uncertainty, there will be more and more opportunity. And because it's a negotiable asset, this gives you the chance to be able to make big chunks of money on the day that you buy them. Now this year, I'm certainly going to be purchasing a property or two as long as I can get a great deal. And this is going to be the strategy I'm going to be using. I'm going to first of all make sure that I don't have to do much work on the property because that adds more complexity and more risk. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I get a good discount. And maybe 20% will be a little bit optimistic. We will have to see how this year unfolds. But as peak pessimism happens, as people start to get scared, as the newspapers print doomsday predictions, that will be the best possible time for me to start making these offers. I tried it a little bit in November, December, no biters. I think that we were a little bit early. March, April, May time, something like that this year, when people are feeling a little bit more pessimistic, as long as the news is bad, I feel we'll be able to negotiate something out. The third reason I've put on here why I believe that property is such a great investment for 2023 is there are lots of years of gains to retrace. Property prices have gone up on average by 20-30% over the last 3 or 4 years. COVID did not slow that down. So there are lots of people that are sat on large profits, which means that there's lots of money in the deals for me to be able to try and negotiate out. And I see that as a big opportunity. And I've been looking at some of the areas up north. The property was up for sale for 115. We would want it for about 110. Now, if I was to do a 25% mortgage, the mortgage would be 75k, and I would put in 25k, right? And then on about 5%, which is what a single let mortgage is at the moment, roughly, maybe it's 6, maybe it's 4, but I've certainly found some deals around the 5% mark. That would be £3,750 for over 12 months, which would give us a £312 mortgage payment on that property. Now, with voids and maintenance and insurance, about £100, and then having some management on the property of £85, that would give us a cost base of that property of about £400. 397 was the number that I came up with there, but it's about £400. And maybe you get a bad deal on your insurance, and instead of paying 15, 20 quid a month, you pay, I don't know, 30, 40, and maybe that's 410, 420, whatever. Ultimately, it's gonna be about the £400 mark. Even if you went for a 6% mortgage, and that increased by another £750, well, you'd still be looking at about 440, 450 in your cost range. So fairly cheap on the costs. And rents in this town have moved on. Now, if I went back about, 18 months or so, this property would have rented for about 650. It's now 850. And that means that there's a really good profit in this. In fact, with 30k in, which was my £25,000 deposit, plus 5k of costs, so solicitors, valuations, all the things that you're going to pay when it comes to this stuff, when it comes to purchasing something, about 5k of costs on that is about right. Maybe it's 6, whatever. But 5k of costs, 30k in. If I was to rent it for 850, I'd get £5,400 a year profit, and that'd be an 18% ROI on a single let, which is the lowest risk property investment you can make. If you were to hierarchy them, so single let, HMO, service accommodation, you'd say single let's easily the lowest risk. HMO, more moving parts, more complexity. Of course, it needs to return more money, therefore it's slightly higher risk. Service accommodation, even more moving parts, guests staying all the time, you win with one hand, you take with another. Ultimately, it needs more return because it's more complexity. So in the simplest of terms, when I'm comparing that, even with these higher interest rates with deals that we were looking at maybe a year ago, well, if I'm able to negotiate this price down and the rent's increased as much as it has, these are coming out better than they were in 2021. That is why I think that this might be the best time, the biggest opportunity for investing in property. And to put it simply, it's because there is uncertainty in the market that gives you a buying opportunity. Rents have moved on a lot in the last year or so. About 15-20%, I would say, maybe even more in this town. That's a significant rise, I'll tell you. And that means that your ROI is going to be bigger. And this is really capitalism in full swing, isn't it? If the costs have gone up, the rents must go up because the rents need to cover the costs with plenty of profit for your risk. And if there isn't, then you're going to leave the market and the rents will then, under supply and demand, have to go up because there'll be less supply. That's why I believe 2023 is possibly going to be the best opportunity. Make sure you negotiate well though. I believe that is going to be the key for this year. Guys, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. I can't wait to read them. I'll get back in touch with as many as I possibly can, and I will see you on the next video. Like and subscribe as always. Cheers guys.